that would perhaps take into account Colombia's intervention. I see the flag from the EU.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this proposal. I want to state in the beginning that we are positive towards this, this work, so no worries there. We were thinking that, as we are saying that this engagement in the Beyond 2020 process, which is of course important, so in the intersessional process itself, but we are already thinking also that we want the engagement to continue, like you said yourself, that this would be, we don't have a language suggestion, but if that could be reflected, or if that could at least be the understanding in the room, that the engagement of the stakeholders, even after ICCM5, is important. And then in the last part, the known impediments, I can't even pronounce that word. We would like to be a bit more positive, so could it be, since I can't pronounce the word there, could it be obstacles and incentives? So that we would also, you know, it's the possibilities also, and you know, so obstacles and incentives. Yeah, and then one point about the heading.
Oh yeah,
we don't
yeah.
think that resolutions are possible, so.
Agreed.
Yes.
We were just trying to, yes, it was late and we were throwing it on a piece of paper, but absolutely understood. So to reflect those, we would go into after known, if we could change that to obstacles and incentives. Mm-hmm. And then I think we have had, we had a pretty good discussion, I believe, on Tuesday, if I have my days correct, that this is not something that we would want to end at IP4. So I'm hoping that we could have an understanding in the room that that would be sufficient. Sorry, that would be sufficient, that we do have an understanding in the room that it is continuous. With that, I'm looking around the room so that we can give the EU some comfort that everybody is in agreement on that. Thank you. Iran?
Thank you so much. With the EU suggestion, maybe while we could rely on the Secretariat, how they are going to develop such a paper. Also, it is important to take into account, I mean, the views of the relevant stakeholders. It is very important that when they are going to identify obstacles and incentives, let's see that how they from the vision of the stakeholders, how they see it. So the Secretary is also requested to develop a paper, summarize, take into account views of the relevant stakeholders, and then let's proceed. Thank you.
Okay, can I just confirm that I think what's being requested from Iran is that there would be an opportunity for stakeholders to provide input into the paper that's being developed by the Secretariat. We have requested the Secretariat to step down and just confirm that they are able to do that. So if we can put that idea on hold for just a minute. I see the flag of Uruguay.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We would like to add just a word. Known obstacles and possible incentives. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can look at the EU to see if that's acceptable to them in their language. I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you. So I am going to perhaps make the assumption that the secretary will indeed be willing to accept comment from stakeholders. So I'm going to turn to, let's see, request of a paper. After participation, could we add taking into account? Could we add after participation at the bottom? Taking into account
The input from relevant stakeholders.
yes, any input from relevant stakeholders. Are we all relevant? Perhaps we're all relevant. Taking into account any input from stakeholders, received from stakeholders. And then we will leave it to the Secretariat to run an appropriate process to collect that input. I see the Secretariat has arrived, so we will give him just a second to catch up. However, in the meantime, I think we are prepared to accept this text, subject to their consultations behind me. Yes? Do I see any objections? Thank you very much. We will accept this text as clean text. Thank you, and we'll leave it in the hands of the co-chairs of the overall process to formulate and format it appropriately going forward with the rest of the suggestions from the other thematic groups. I see Argentina with its flag.
Yes, thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and sorry for jumping in when you are cleaning the text. But we see in the text above, in the request for the Secretariat, is some text that is also to moving forward, is the part that says that the Secretary is also requested to prepare analyses using input from stakeholders and others to identify any additional languages that are necessary to enhance multi-sectorial nature beyond 2020 instrument. This could also be bring into the going forward because it's also further steps.
So I think the idea of that paragraph is that that would be going forward after ICCM 5, when all of the initial contributions, I think we didn't call them initial, we deleted that, but once all the contributions have been received, as opposed to limiting that time frame between now and IP4. So I think when Columbia introduced that the other day, we had a discussion about we wouldn't want to limit that analysis to just the number of contributions that would be received for IP4, but rather that would be an ongoing process that would occur after ICCM 5. I believe Columbia had agreed to that.
Oh, yes, I had actually the requirement from Colombia to add it to the next step, so that was.
Are we in agreement?
No. Actually, Colombia asked me to put it into the next steps because they believe that if it's by ICCM, could it be possible to have it in between, so not beyond the ICCM 5? Because it says by ICCM 5, not after that.
Sorry. You're saying it's by ICCM 5 in the previous text. But I think, so are you asking now if we could have it by IP4? So these are the instructions between now and IP4. So this is our forward-looking instructions, not, I'm sorry, perhaps you misunderstood when I said forward-looking. This is to get us to IP4. This is not the beyond IP4. This is just whatever we're calling that, intersessional work, or et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, with that, we would like to express our appreciation to those of you who are here and have been here many, many hours, and for moving some text forward. We are, I think, as co-chairs, quite pleased with the amount of text that we have managed to clean. We, of course, still have some brackets, and hopefully between now and IP4, we can give some consideration to how to move those brackets forward prior to ICCM 5. So thank you very much. We appreciate the kind spirit in which you all operated and look forward to seeing you in Romania. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everybody.
time and the fact that we are running a bit behind schedule, we'd appreciate if you could take a seat so we could resume, please. We'll get going in a minute.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We open our final plenary of the day. We would like to give the floor to our ICCM5 president to give her reflections on the work we have completed. Ms. Saller, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, distinguished delegates. I would like to thank you all for the last 4 days of intensive and fruitful deliberations. We have all worked very hard to advance concrete proposals on the text of recommendations on SAICM and the sound management of chemicals and waste. Your efforts have enabled us to set up a firm foundation for our work at IP3 in Bucharest and take a large step towards a successful ICCM5 outcome. At the same time, it is clear that we have much more to do to find agreement on how to enhance SAICM and the sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020. I encourage you to continue your commitment and to scale up your mutual dialogue on the manifold issues in front of us. Careful listening to each other helps building common ground on areas of disagreement. In that sense, I would like to encourage all initiatives that facilitate dialogue so that we can leave Bucharest well prepared for ICCM5 in Bonn. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I trust that you share my sense that we are on a good track and that this boosts your willingness to continue the good and constructive work that you have been doing. I look forward to seeing you all in Bucharest and wish you a safe journey back. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before we finalize our agenda item for discussions, we would like to call on each of the relevant IOMC organizations to provide us with a brief summary on their lunchtime sector meetings during the course of the week. You will have 3 minutes each. Please, WHO, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. The health sector meeting brought together a range of health sector stakeholders as well as stakeholders from other sectors. The meeting focused on health sector perspectives on the Co-Chair's paper on multi-sectoral engagement and the relevance of proposed indicators and milestones. The availability of the formal space during IP3 was very much welcomed, providing important time for discussion, additional networking opportunities, etc. Such practices during SciCam meetings should continue. It was noted that the proposals in the WHO submission on multi-sectoral engagement provide a range of suggestions. Several were identified as needing minimal effort and resources to implement. Organising themed discussions on sectoral subjects of interest during meetings would provide further rationale for increased sectoral attendance. Inclusion of the IOMC organisation logos on SciCam meeting invitations could also make it easier for sectors to get approval to participate, including with their own resources. Looking for ways to improve multi-sectoral engagement at regional levels was identified as important, as well as the relevance of coordinating with regional ministerial health and environment ministerial initiatives. Health NGOs mentioned that the IOMC is useful in bringing the sectors together, including at the national and regional levels. WHO mentioned that our global chemicals and health network contact points can be put in touch with relevant contact points in other ministries at the national level. An Environment Ministry representative mentioned how information on health impacts of chemicals and on issues of food safety helps them to get attention on this issue at the political level. This links, of course, also to the importance of the SDGs, such as Indicator 3.9.3 on unintentional poisoning, which is included in the WHO estimates on the burden of disease attributable to chemicals. It was recognised that ministries of health lead various aspects of chemicals regulation in many countries on drinking water, air quality, food safety, and in some countries also industrial chemicals and pesticides. Other important roles include health impact assessments. Regarding the targets and indicators, the SDGs were seen to provide the big picture for countries. And WHO data sources on health impact and burden of disease, including several that already contribute to the SDG targets and potential SciCam targets, were identified. During the discussions this week, the participants have had an opportunity to inject these ideas into the theme discussion, so we very much benefited from the session that we had. Turning to the international health regulations, which have been mentioned in a number of the discussions this week, and the strengthening of the core capacities monitored in those regulations for preparedness and response to chemical-related incidents and emergencies, this was of interest to many of the discussions. Member state progress in achieving these core capacities is monitored annually by the World Health Assembly, and assessing progress at national levels presents a number of opportunities for cooperation between health, environment, and other sectors. This is because the IHR capacities encompass a range of aspects of chemical emergencies, including chemical regulation, availability of poison centres, development of laboratory capacity for chemicals, and also the existence of multi-sectoral coordination. Achievement of the IHR core capacities is also formally recognised as an SDG indicator, 3D. In conclusion, and again on the indicators and targets, this was seen as relevant for the health sector to encourage health sector participation in the work beyond 2020. It may also include an indicator for sectoral participation in SciCam bodies and events, and an indicator on sectoral access to support for implementation of SciCam, for example, through any financial arrangements. I've summarised the statement a little bit, I hope under 3 minutes, and the full statement is on the website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, UNITAR, you have the floor to report on ILO and FAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Ms. Manal Asi, representing the ILO, has been actively participating in IP3 this week, but was unable to be with us on this final day due to work engagement. The ILO has asked me, in my capacity of acting IMC chair, to report back to the plenary on the labor sector meeting which took place on Wednesday at lunchtime. The ILO is very grateful for the overwhelming interest received and high turnout of participants joining the labor sector meeting. The ILO recalled that in terms of human health impact, workers are the population most at risk, referring to the millions of workers dying or falling sick due to exposures in their workplace that can be prevented. The ILO took the opportunity to present their long-standing work in the area of chemicals and waste. This year, the ILO celebrates its 100th anniversary, reestablishing its relevance as the specialized agency founded on the principle of promoting decent work and protecting workers' health from hazardous substances and other risks. The ILO then reflected on over 20 ILO International's legally binding standards in the area of occupational safety and health, and particularly in the area of the sound management of chemicals and waste. The ILO referred to the number of technical codes of practice, tools, and publications, but also to the role in the international community and through projects in various issues of concern. The ILO also referred to a new upcoming labor sector chemicals action plan to be launched in 2020. The PPT, which was rich in information, can be made available. The International Trade Union Confederation, represented by Rory O'Neill and his colleagues, Liam O'Brien and Ripon Chowdhury, then spoke to the role of unions in fighting for the right of workers to work in safe and healthy working environments, and some persisting concerns. Then there was a country example from the government of Malaysia. Dr. Haslina shared a wealth of information on the main governance of chemicals management in Malaysia and the interministerial collaboration needed locally. There were a number of questions and comments as the world of work cuts across all economic activities and involves the responsibilities of all industries and production processes across global supply chains. The ILO, like the group, to seriously consider the large number of indicators that it has been proposed and in its document to the SICA meeting, which are inspired by its legal instruments and that can be integrated in the Beyond 2020 process. It will also think that similar labor sector meetings would be very welcome as an integral part of the Beyond 2020 process. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Unitar. Now I give the floor to UNEP to report on their.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. The Environment Sector meeting was held today at 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. The meeting was attended by approximately 50 participants with different sectors, including government, civil society, and industry. We would like to thank the participants very much for their participation and active contribution despite parallel working groups. During the meeting, we explored common areas of interest and identified concrete opportunities to strengthen coordination and cooperation between the sound management of chemicals and waste and other clusters. We focused on linkages with climate change, sustainable consumption and production, and human rights. Moreover, we brainstormed other relevant sectors. Set up in an interactive World Café approach, participants were given the opportunity to provide input on each of the 4 topics. Valuable insights emerged, highlighting strong linkages. Just to mention a few examples: GHG emissions from the unsound management of waste, challenges related to the disposal of renewable energy materials, the need to enhance resource efficiency in processes, innovation for products that are benign by design, addressing hazardous substances in buildings, and the need to protect workers' and consumers' rights, including access to information. The participants identified many concrete options for cooperation and coordination. Examples include integrating chemicals and waste management topics in the IPCC reports, developing and submitting joint project proposals for the Green Climate Fund, the GEF, and other relevant financial mechanisms. Promoting integrated collaborative innovation for resource-efficient processes and products that are benign by design. Providing platforms for participation and information for workers and consumers. Strengthening interministerial coordination, mainstreaming chemicals into procurement, and strengthening collaboration with the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxic Wastes. More importantly, the overall message emerging from this fruitful exchange was that there are numerous opportunities and many low-hanging fruits that have not yet been reaped. Looking at concrete proposals, the group considered it worthwhile to explore how these options for cooperation and coordination with other clusters could be integrated in the Beyond 2020 framework, for example, in relevant targets. UNEP will integrate these findings in the revised version of the assessment on linkages with other clusters, which will be made available following incorporation of further comments received. Thank you very much.
Thank you, UNEP. Thank you for those summaries and for your presentations. Okay. Sorry. FAO. UNITAR, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. This time, I will take 3 more minutes to make the presentation on behalf of FAO. FAO has been actively participating in IP3 this week, but could not attend the final day due to other work engagements. The FAO has asked me, in my capacity as acting chair, IMC chair, to report back to plenary on the agriculture sector meeting, which took place on Thursday at lunchtime. The FAO is very grateful for the interest received from the participants joining the agriculture sector meeting. Agrochemicals play a key role in agricultural production and contributes to the food security and nutrition, as well as improvement of livelihoods of farmers. However, overuse and misuse of agrochemicals poses risks to human health and the environment, resulting in social, environmental, and economic problems such as poisoning, degradation of landscape, losses of biodiversity, excessive residues in foods, and failure of trade of agricultural produce. Sound management of agrochemicals is crucial to achieve sustainable agriculture and UN SDGs. The FAO took this opportunity to present their long-standing work in the area of agrochemicals and waste and health, and open discussions on questions of main challenges, gaps, priorities, and future direction of agrochemical management, collaboration of relevant stakeholders, and better engagement of agricultural sectors in SICAM program. The presentation, which was rich in information, can be made available. The main outcomes of the meeting were: large number of questions and comments were raised on HHPs. It was agreed a global strategy on HHPs with concrete targets and roadmap is essential for phasing out these toxic pesticides. Promoting agroecology and integrated pest management and developing innovative alternatives, in particular biopesticides, are crucial for removing the HHPs in agriculture. Data collection and better use of this issue was discussed in a better way to address risk reduction of pesticides. Concerns of illegal trade were discussed with a link to international double standards, national policy on production, use, and exportation. Strengthening national capacity on pesticide management should be a priority. The cooperation was flagged on one of the issues to reinforce the importance for a close cooperation between sectors and stakeholders, including industry and NGOs, as problems can only be addressed and solved by engagement and cooperation of all relevant stakeholders. Economic benefits should be taken into account as a feasible solution, and issues like soil health, biodiversity, and water pollution were pointed as important cross-cutting issues. The meeting had a fruitful discussion due to the active involvement and contribution of all participants. They identify challenges and gaps, propose valuable suggestions and proposals, recognition of importance of engagement of stakeholders, and agreement on closer collaboration between sectors and partners would definitely support future sound management of agrochemicals under SICAM framework and contribute to sustainable agriculture and SDGs. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now, thank you for those summaries and for your presentations. This meeting certainly emphasized the importance of multisectoral collaboration within SICAM, and as we move forward, we would like to note that the summaries of the sectoral events will be on the SICAM site. Dear colleagues, we have reached to the end of our deliberations on matters of substantive concern at this third meeting. While it may have appeared at times that the process was slow, we have made considerable progress on all issues. We are aware that there is still work to be done at IP4 to formulate sound recommendations for ICCM to consider at its first meeting. Turning now to our thematic groups, each group has completed their work and should be able to provide us with an overview of its deliberations. Issues that have been not solved or touched upon, those that have been addressed, and those for which there might be clean text and any other relevant conclusions. Let us now invite one of the co-chairs from each of the thematic groups to provide us with their report. Let's invite Sylvia Kalpnis from Group A. Mr. Co-chair, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to inform the group that we have fairly successfully worked for 3 days and have produced an outcome document from our group. Although we did not fully complete the mandate, we have found a vehicle through which to continue the work that we have started here and which we have moved towards completion in formulation of different targets and the respective indicators and such for preparation before ICCM 5. What we have and what is uploaded on the web under the Intersessional Documents is an outcome document which includes guidance on establishing a technical working group which could work during the intersessional period and prepare information that could be presented to IP4 as an information document that could be used in further deliberation and finalization of strategic objectives, targets, and indicators. I would like to thank all participants of the group for their endurance, for their mutual respect that was among the participants, for their patience with us as co-chairs and the Secretariat, and the trust which we established within the group from the beginning and which was maintained over all the 3 sessions. I would like to also express my deepest thanks to the Secretariat for all the multitasking during and outside the sessions, which made my co-chair and I successful in our work. And I hope that the intersessional IP3 will be happy with the outcome that we have come up with. We tried our best and applied ourselves as much as possible over these days, and hopefully it will be useful for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we invite Ms. Carissa Kovner, co-chair from the Group B. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Our group today was able to use the extra time that you graciously gave to us to work on our text off the basis of a co-chair's draft on the enhanced multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder engagement. We have completed our work with quite a bit of clean text and, of course, some remaining brackets that we will move forward to IP4. We also made a number of small improvements to our previous text on institutional arrangements related to the international conference. In terms of work going forward to IP4, We have we have suggested perhaps that relevant stakeholders and sectors be requested to develop their contributions to the Beyond 2020 process and to send those contributions to the Secretariat prior to IP4 if possible. It is, however, to be a continuous process. The Secretariat would then disseminate those contributions as information to IP4 and continue to do that going forward. In addition, the Secretariat is requested to develop a short summary of known obstacles and possible incentives to multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder participation. In the form of these texts, we have presented some outcome documents. They have been made available on the web, and that text is our contribution to the compilation text that will go forward as a basis for our work at IP4. I think Sylvia very nicely captured all of the thanks, so if I may be so bold as to simply thank her for her contribution and echo that from our group, and we look forward to seeing everyone at IP4. Thank you.
Thank you. Group C, I recognize that you reported out this morning. Do you want to add anything else to your summary of this morning? Shimon? I don't see Shimon. It's right there. Okay. Shimon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We address all report during the morning session. I think that due to the time constraints, and we will not add any additional issue. It will all be reflected in the meeting report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I invite Mr. Jonas Ormond from the Group D to make his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. In addition to my co-chair's comprehensive report to plenary this morning, the mandate given to Thematic D on financial considerations was largely achieved. Thematic D group transmit the deliberations undertaken at this meeting, which includes the integrated approach, the establishment of and engagement in multi-sectoral partnership, and financing of the Secretariat, which is contained in the Thematic Group outcome document to IP4 for further deliberations. The capacity building document will be made available by the Secretariat for inputs and suggestions with a deadline of 15th December 2019. It is envisaged that the revised version of this document will subsequently be presented to IP4 for further deliberation. Finally, the report capturing the discussions on targets relevant to financial considerations under the strategic objective E will be made available to the technical expert group. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my co-chair Reggie, Nalini and Manoush from the Secretariat for the exceptional support, to co-chair Sylvia from Thematic Group A for her guidance and contribution to our group, and to all the delegates and stakeholders who contributed to the advancements of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. You have now heard the reports from each thematic group. Are there any questions of clarification? I don't see no flags, so please, David.
Thank you very much, Judith. And I think on behalf of Judith and myself, we'd like to have a sincere round of applause for our co-chairs and the tremendous amount of work they have done. Thank you very much. I think we would also like to thank all participants and delegates to this meeting who contributed to the beneficial, the lively, and the engaged discussions that we had over the past few days. I think one of the things that we've both noted is not just the dialogue within the room, which was definitely engaging, as we saw by the square brackets and the amount of new text and the revision of the text, but we also saw several side discussions that took place in an attempt amongst participants to advance the topic, and that definitely shows a sign of your dedication and your continued engagement in this process. Now, the results from each of the groups will be uploaded to the SICEM website during this meeting. So if they're not already uploaded, they should be uploaded by the end of this meeting, and these are the results from the thematic discussion groups. The Secretariat will then compile the results of the 4 thematic groups, forming the outcome document of IP3, and ultimately this will be annexed to the report of this meeting. As indicated to you at the beginning of this meeting, the formal report on the meeting will also be finalized after the meeting and made available on the SICEM webpage. This should be made available probably sometime in November. So this should be available on the SICEM website. As you may recall, there were extensive discussions at the Open-Ended Working Group 3 on vision, scope, and strategic objectives and targets with regards to the sound management of chemicals and waste. So we agreed that we would not discuss those issues at IP3. So as a result of that, the Secretariat will work with both Judith and myself to compile results from the Open-Ended Working Group 3 discussions, so essentially that outcome document, as well as the 4 pieces that are the results of our deliberation and discussion this week. The goal of that, as I mentioned before, is to compile those into a single document, and that document will serve as the zero draft going into our discussions in Romania in March 2020. Judith, myself, and the Secretariat would just like to confirm that we have your agreement to proceed in this manner and have that document made available in time for our discussions in Romania. Seeing no flags, we thank you in advance for your confidence, your continued support of us, and we will have that document made available to you. We would also like to inform you that the Bureau has considered the need. Hang on a second. Apologies for this. Just cognizant of time, and we believe our delegates from Germany would like to make an announcement. I'm sorry, I think I saw your flag and maybe overlooked it. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we have heard today, over the last 4 days, we have seen some shared understanding and emerging agreement on the scope of issues that need to be strengthened and enhanced to achieve the sound management of chemicals and waste globally, and on how to do it. At the same time, we have also heard that there is a need for further discussion before we can finalize our recommendations to ICCM. As the UNITA workshop on enhanced governance and the Cambridge workshop on indicators have shown, creating an informal setting for open discussion and focused discussion can be very fruitful. We believe that another informal workshop on governance would allow for in-depth discussion of issues and help us to further advance our shared thinking. Germany would be ready to host this workshop in early 2020 and will provide more information on date and other details in due course. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Germany. We note we have Mexico followed by Norway, please. Mexico, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I would like to make a very brief statement from the government of Mexico, requesting, please, if you can include it in the documents of this IP3. Mexico endorses the commitment to continue strengthening participation in the application of the strategic approach, We support a broader instrument that contemplates the adoption of the mechanism and additional measures proposed which will support the implementation of CICM to achieve greater multi-sectorial commitments, monitor progress, share best practices and lessons learned among countries that are facing similar challenges, as well as strengthen the capacities of interested parties to move toward reasoning management of chemical beyond 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mexico. I believe Norway, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair. We agree with Germany that we have made considerable progress at this IP3 towards a shared understanding and emerging agreement on many elements of the new global framework for the sound management of chemicals and waste. We are grateful for Germany's continued commitment to the IP process and thank Germany for their kind offer to host a workshop on governance. We would welcome such a workshop and would, from our side, ask whether perhaps a selected number of other items could be discussed at the workshop. If Germany would be willing to consider this, we would suggest that the President, in consultation with the Bureau and the co-chairs of the IP process, consider progress made so far and identify a limited number of items that would merit further discussions before IP4. From our side, we would also suggest that the workshop be open to interested stakeholders. Norway would be willing to contribute to providing an inclusive workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway. Seeing no more... Germany, please.
Thank you, and very brief, we'd like to thank Norway for their offer, and we're of course happy to work together on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. I see the United States, please.
Thank you, Chair, and we appreciate Germany's offer to help us proceed productively into IP4. I just wanted to ask one point of clarification that I guess our understanding would be that the documents emerging from this meeting would not change heading into IP4, that those discussions would just help to advance common understanding without actually changing the inputs to the IP4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for your question. Your point of clarification, United States, you're right. The documents coming out of this workshop that are compiled into the zero draft will then inform the discussions at, will be the document, I should say, going into IP4. The workshop that Germany is going to host hopefully will help inform insight into furthering discussions at IP4, but they will not be the document that comes out of this workshop. Sorry, it's getting late. Other thing we'd like to inform you is that the Bureau has considered the need for IP4 to move ahead in developing a new title for the Beyond 2020 instrument. This is welcome news. I've heard from many participants that the title is not too intuitive, so I think that this is a welcome news. We look forward to this, and hopefully as we move forward, we'll work with the Secretariat and provide some options for consideration at IP4.
Now, on agenda item 5, we now turn our attention to this agenda item on any other business. While no other items were proposed during our adoption of the agenda for this meeting, we would like your indulgence to introduce under this agenda item the Secretariat proposal for Strategic Approach Progress Reporting for 2017-2019. We will now therefore request the Secretariat to introduce their paper, Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. The third meeting of Open-Ended Working Group requested the Secretariat to develop a simple progress report for the period 2017 to 2019 that, using existing data, provides an overview of strategic approach activities, accomplishments, and challenges for consideration by ICCM 5. Meeting participants have before them a proposal from the Secretariat for strategic approach progress reporting for the period 2017 to 2019, the document number IP3/11. Participants may wish to consider this proposal from the Secretariat for strategic approach progress reporting for the period 2017-2019 as requested by the OEWG3. Participants may wish to provide feedback to the Secretariat on this proposal. Specifically, stakeholders may wish to note that the Secretariat proposal requests stakeholder groups who are intending to prepare progress reports in advance of ICCM 5 to provide these reports to the Secretariat by 28 February 2020. This deadline should allow sufficient time for the Secretariat to analyze the submissions and use them as input to the overall progress report for the period 2017 to 2019. Furthermore, meeting participants may wish to give guidance to the Secretariat in preparing the final report on progress to ICCM 5, both in the context of celebrating achievements of SciCam in 2020 and in setting out relevant baseline information for the sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. We would like now to open the floor for any questions or clarifications regarding the Secretariat proposal. I see no flags, so we can continue. David.
Thank you very much, Judith. Dear colleagues, it is time for us to close this meeting. So the third meeting of the intersessional process is quickly coming to an end. After a meeting that started on Monday, we had excellent deliberations. We do appreciate that it is about to end. So we'd like to remind you that the report of this meeting will be finalized by the Secretariat, will be made available on the website, and you have a series of documents to look forward to between now and the Intersessional Process 4, which is being held in Romania. Before we officially close the meeting, we'd like to see whether or not there are any final remarks from delegates. Oh, Argentina, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I'm honored to deliver this statement on behalf of the American and Caribbean region. GRULAC would like to express our gratitude to the co-chairs, the Secretariat, and all colleagues for the spirit and cooperation and their efforts to move this process forward. In order to provide recommendations to ICCM 5 to make informed decisions about the future arrangements for the Beyond 2020 framework, we must continue working together in a constructive way towards a sound management of chemicals and waste throughout their life cycle, to avoid or minimize adverse effects on human health and the environment. As a region, we recognize the need for a comprehensive framework for sound management of chemicals and waste that address the development and implementation of legislations and policies that include and integrate all international instruments in force and seek to achieve synergies and coherence. For this, it is also needed a great commitment, cooperation, and coordination among stakeholders, aiming at strengthening the capacities of developing countries for integrated management and promoting the adequate transfer of cleaner and safer technology. GRULAC stressed the need for a profound sectorial involvement in order to enhance coordinated and collaborative implementation and avoid duplication. Furthermore, for these efforts will elevate the visibility of the languages with other clusters, such as human rights, labor, health, among others, as an essential component to achieve the 2030 Agenda. We recognize and appreciate the valuable current participation and involvement of the private sector. Nevertheless, we strongly believe that it should be more encouraged. We encourage the incorporation of other sectors and the increasing of the contributions along the value chain for the implementation of the sound management of chemicals and waste in an effort to prevent and mitigate the impacts generated from their activities to human health and environment. For developing countries, it is crucial to have a sustainable financial resource allocated to ensure the Beyond 2020 framework for sound management of chemicals and waste. GRULAC believes that the three components on the integrated approach to financing are equally important, and it should provide predictable, adequate, and accessible resources, essential for developing countries. If we expect to have tangible resource, a stronger financial mechanism for chemicals and waste is needed, along with the highest political commitment. This mechanism should be accessible to governments, private sector, and civil society in developing countries, offering different types of financial instruments, such as donations, loans at concessional rates, and guarantees. The fund should receive resources from governments, private sector, and philanthropies, among others. We also expect that the final outcome of the deliberations from the intersessional process contain specific provisions regarding capacity building, which is crucial for the implementation of the sound management of chemicals and waste, and for an increase in engagement and ambition. Therefore, we suggest that the Secretariat, in coordination with the co-chairs and the Bureau members, prepare a document based on the OPS for IP4 as another relevant issue. Finally, we understand the great challenge that lies before us and consider it crucial to guarantee the adequate participation of developing countries in all meetings where these aspects are discussed, and to have the documents available at a reasonable time, and to reiterate the commitments of the Latin American and Caribbean to participate actively in this process to achieve sustainable results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Argentina. I have the EU, please.
Thank you. Madam and Mr. Co-Chair, the European Union and its member states would like to congratulate you for your tireless and enthusiastic direction of this meeting, and thank the Bureau and the co-chairs of the thematic discussion groups for dedicated work. We would also like to thank the Secretariat for the good preparation and organization of the meeting, and the UNEP for hosting it. We welcome the constructive spirit that characterized our work this week and enable us to make progress in preparing ICCM5. We have again demonstrated the importance of working in a multi-sectorial and multi-stakeholder way. It is clear that everyone agrees that ICCM5 will be a crucial milestone for shaping the future of the strategic approach and the sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020 and in the context of the 2030 Agenda. The European Union and its member states consider that the work we have done this week on the preparation of the recommendations on the strategic approach and the sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020 for consideration at ICCM5 was an important step forward. We would like to emphasize the importance of clear and common understanding of the next steps in this process, and we are looking forward to continuing the work of the intersessional process beyond 2020 and the IP4 meeting in Bucharest. The European Union and its member states welcome the broad support for an improved enabling framework to raise awareness, enhance the political support, and foster mainstreaming of sound chemicals and waste management in all relevant sectors. We fully share the call of UNEA4 on governments and all other relevant stakeholders, including the UN agencies, to enhance support for SAICM in its role for this improved enabling framework. we join the Global Chemicals Outlook in its important message that business as usual is not an option for the future. The need to do better and to do more and to improve the framework for sound management of chemicals and waste has been recognized long before that conclusion has been drawn. It was in 2013 when the country-led consultative process of strengthening the sound management of chemicals and waste in the long term has been launched. The current process has been initiated with the ambition to shape and improve enabling framework for the future management of chemicals and waste, that it's able to respond to all challenges, current and emerging, in order to ensure a high level of protection of human health and environment. This week, we faced long and difficult discussions, but we should not feel discouraged. In the light of the conclusions of the Global Chemicals Outlook and the numerous challenges ahead, we only have one option, and this is to be even more ambitious, so we can improve the current framework that enables us to respond to all challenges. The European Union and its member states would like to express our commitment to further engage with you all in the discussions preparing the 5th meeting at the International Conference on Chemicals Management in 2020. Allow me to finish by thanking the people of Bangkok for the excellent hospitality we have enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union. We have Zambia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The African Group wishes to thank you, the co-chairs of the intersessional process, and the Bureau for leading us in an excellent and efficient way during these 4 days here in the city of Bangkok. We also thank all delegates for their active participation, commitment, and valuable contributions. Co-Chair, the African Group acknowledges the hard work that has been undertaken at this IP3 meeting. However, we note that the process has been quite slow, and there is therefore need for us to quicken the pace and take stock of all outstanding issues in readiness for IP4. In preparing for IP4, the African Group would like to highlight the following issues. We are looking forward to further deliberations on finance in order to come up with an innovative, robust, and inclusive financial mechanism that provides adequate, sufficient, and sustainable financing for SAICM 2.0 and the post-2020 framework. We call upon the Secretariat to therefore provide all the necessary papers, including the Resource Mobilization Strategy paper, which will inform a constructive discussion at IP4 for identifying these workable financing mechanisms. On the post-2020 framework for the sound management of chemicals and waste, we wish to thank the government of Germany for the work that has been done so far and the offer to host the workshop in early 2020. The paper has been useful in informing the discussions here at IP3. However, our region is of the view that there is need for further discussions on this paper between IP3 and IP4. This will enable all stakeholders to discuss this paper in detail to come up with a structured framework for managing chemicals and waste. The African Group also requests that further discussions on targets and indicators be undertaken between IP3 and IP4 to further refine this work. In this regard, it is our hope that a transparent and more inclusive mechanism will be followed in bringing together a team that will undertake this work. On the issues of concern, the Africa Group is looking forward to the post-2020 framework that will be able to mainstream the current issues of concern into the new framework and provide mechanisms to identify and detect new issues of concern, as well as develop plans of action to address current and new issues while developing mechanisms to further monitor progress in addressing these. We also believe that such a process should have the precautionary principle embedded in it to ensure that lack of information does not warrant inaction. On science policy interface, the group is of the view that a science body similar to the IPCC is paramount. Such a body will not only raise the political profile of sound management of chemicals and waste, but will also provide an informed process to enhance implementation at national, regional, and global levels, as well as build capacity. In conclusion, Mr. Co-Chair, the African Group avails itself to any intersessional work that might help advance work on the 4 thematic areas. We believe that collaboratively, countries and all stakeholders will work together towards an ambitious outcome for the Beyond 2020 framework for the sound management of chemicals and waste that will minimize and prevent adverse effects of chemicals and waste on human health and the environment. We wish all delegates a safe journey home and hope to meet you at IP4. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Zambia. I have North Macedonia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. On behalf of the Central and Eastern European region, I would like to thank the SICOM Secretariat and the ICCM5 Bureau for the excellent organization of the 3rd meeting of the intersessional process here in the beautiful city of Bangkok. I would also like to express our gratitude to the co-chairs of the intersessional process for the proposed text developed, requested by the Open-Ended Working Group number 3 in close cooperation with the SICOM Secretariat, and to the co-chairs of the thematic groups that put a lot of efforts during these days to finalize their proposed texts, ensuring all the views that were expressed by the delegates during the thematic groups are properly reflected in the proposed documents. We are proud that 2 co-chairs in the 4 thematic groups were from our region. We would also like to thank all SICOM donors who enabled participation of CE representatives in this intersessional process. The IP3 meeting have been additional occasion to further complete the ideas discussed during the 1st and the 2nd meeting of the intersessional process and further developed at regional meetings. The CE region would like to note that during this meeting, important steps had been made on the future of the strategic approach and the sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020. In that regard, it is important to hold regional meetings on a regular basis to discuss the SICOM agenda in its implementation beyond 2020. The regional meetings furthermore provide a platform to review progress in regional implementation and address regional priorities for the future. The sound management of chemicals and waste is not a standalone issue, but relevant to many cross-cutting issues which requires multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach. Thus, there is a need to forge links with Agenda 2030 and its relevant areas such as climate change, water, biodiversity, health policies, food safety, and policy concepts of sustainable consumption and production and sustainable chemistry. A future approach should complement Agenda 2030 and reaffirm core strategic approach documents such as the Dubai and its relevant and other relevant documents. As the global trade of chemicals increased and chemical production was moving to developing countries and countries with economies in transition, it is necessary to ensure that all are well prepared to face future challenges and that no one is left behind. On behalf of the Romanian government, we wish to welcome you all in IP4, which will take place in Bucharest in March next year, showing that commitment of CE region to sound management of chemicals and waste will be continued beyond 2020. I wish you all successful implementation of your plans and goals in the SICOM community and wider, and have a safe journey back home. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, North Macedonia. Iran, please.
Thank you so much, co-chairs and excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Asia Pacific region, I would like to express our appreciation and thanks to the SICOM Secretariat, co-chairs for their leadership and Secretariat, staff members for their dedications, all preparations and arrangements made by them. I would like to present our sincere appreciation to the government of, and people of Kingdom of Thailand for hosting this important event. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Iran. So before formally closing the meeting, my co-chair and myself would like to provide sorry. Oh, my apologies. Thailand, I did not see your flag. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. Thailand just would like to thank all delegation for your contribution and fruitful discussion we have here. We made a lot of progress and outcomes. However, we still have some remaining issues that need the intersessional work before IP4. Hope it would be good and getting the fruitful outcome as well. Lastly, we wish you all to have the safe and sound trip back home, and for whom have few days left in Bangkok, we hope you have a pleasant stay in Bangkok. See you again in the next coming meeting and at IP4 in Bucharest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thailand. Very appropriate that you get the last word. So before closing the meeting, allow my co-chair and myself to make a few observations and some last remarks.
We walked through these various essential aspects of our SAICM and sound management of chemicals and waste beyond 2020 during this week. We got important input from sectoral meetings, and certainly we are inspired to have the best framework to address chemicals and waste management. You have enthusiastically engaged in thematic groups, and you also foresee what's still to be done, such as our current APAs, the science policy interface, and capacity building. Thanks for your engagement and your constructive work. We wish, David and I, that all this enthusiasm and commitment will go with us through IP4 and continue to ICCM5.
So thank you very much, Judith. On behalf of both Judith and myself, we would sincerely like to thank the Government of Thailand, the City of Bangkok, SCAP also, so the UN facilities here. It has been a wonderful venue to hold this meeting. We would also like to thank the donors that contributed generously to having this meeting. Last but not least, we must not forget all those who have worked so hard behind the scenes, the SAICM Secretariat, all the staff of the building here at the UN who have ensured that this meeting has run smoothly and efficiently, as well as the continued work of the SAICM Secretariat as we move forward to finalize and post these documents. I really think they deserve a sincere round of applause. So we look forward to seeing you at the 4th session of the IP process in Romania in March of 2020. On that note, we declare the 3rd meeting of the IP process closed. Safe travels, and we look forward to seeing you in Romania.